after a couple of days, the ego actually tries to come back and reassert dominance and can actually come back stronger than it was before. I want to talk about ego whiplash. This is something that many people experience after a psychedelic ceremony. What can often happen is that in a psychedelic experience, especially with 5-MeO-DMT, we have this ego dissolution, or often referred to as an ego death, where our ego is fully dissolved into the experience and our sense of self, our sense of identity, basically fully disappears. And then we come back from that experience and we feel much more connected, we feel much more grounded. We're not as tied to all of our patterning and our identities and all our fixed ideas about what is and what isn't. But then at some point, and sometimes it's a couple of days, sometimes it can be like hours later, the ego comes flying back into frame. And it basically is trying to regain control over your perception. It's basically, our ego has always been around since a very young age. Its idea is basically to organize our life, organize all of the noise into a way of perceiving the world that is very fixed. And in some ways this is important because otherwise it would be very difficult to function in and move through life. But on the other hand, a lot of what we're doing here in psychedelics is challenging our fixed beliefs and realizing that there's a much broader picture there, and then basically reorienting our life. So that's the entire point. Of course, the ego isn't really super happy about this and is trying to come back and regain control in order to keep you safe, because that's what it thinks it's been doing since you were a very small child. And so this ego whiplash, what that really means is that the ego comes back, and sometimes it comes back even stronger than it was before. You may find certain tendencies or habits or mental patterns or reactivity to be even more pronounced than it was before the psychedelic journey. This is usually a phase that you can really use as a tool, like use as a time to really explore what are these patterns that are coming up? What is the voice in my head saying to me? And how do I actually feel about it? How does my true self feel about this message I'm receiving from my mind or my ego? But it's important to stay very aware through this period and to really pay careful attention, because otherwise what can end up happening is that your ego just comes back into play, and it comes back stronger than it was in the first place, which basically defeats the purpose. So this is just something to be aware of and to pay close attention to as you come out of your psychedelic experiences.